Hello there everybody, What Culture's Adam Cleary here, and Star Wars Episode 9, I don't mind telling you this, is going to round out the saga, and thanks to the first trailer dropping the other week, we know a little bit more about how it's going to do that. Now that trailer dropped two major revelation fact bombs on us. One, it's going to be called Rise of Skywalker, and two, it's going to feature Emperor Palpatine, which of course sent the internet into overdrive, and there are now about 8 million fan theories about how and why that's gonna happen. Like, the dude's been dead for 30 years. The hell. Palpatine's return is going to allow the saga to connect all 9 Skywalker movies, which means we could revisit Anakin's story because, well, it is as much about him as it is about Luke, but because J.J. Abrams is at the helm, we could also revisit Rey's parentage. Hey, for all we know, the two things might actually be connected, and Emperor Palpatine created Rey as a clone of Anakin. Hear me out. Alright, so first of all, we know that Rey's parentage was the big talking point coming out of The Force Awakens. And it was such a big talking point because nobody in the film actually talked about it. All we knew was what she knew. She'd been left there on Jakku and was presumably waiting for them to return. Crucially though, Maz told her that the belongings she sought lay not behind her, which is that way, but in front of her, which led to all these theories that when she finally connected with Luke, she would find the family bond she was looking for. I mean, after all, she had these incredible Force powers, but no surname, which means it could have been Skywalker, or indeed Solo, or I guess Palpatine. Then of course, The Last Jedi did lots of Last Jedi things and cut right through the middle of that by having Kylo Ren make Rey realize the truth she'd always known deep down. Her parents were nobodies, they were scumbags, they sold her off for drinking money, and now they lie dead in a pauper's grave. Bit of an anticlimax. Now, sure, yes, he could be lying, but J.J. Abrams has already gone on record to say they will not be retconning that or indeed anything else. So we have to take it at this stage as true. In fact though, what Abrams actually said lends a bit of credence to this whole theory. Speaking to ABC News, his exact words were, "I don't want to say that what happens in episode 8 didn't happen, we have honoured that, but I will say that there's more to the story than you've seen." So rather than changing that reveal completely, what if instead it's a twist on the semantics? Yes, we've heard our parents were nobody, but what if they were literally nobody? Blah, what, Adam? What are you talking about? Okay, right, I'll unpack this fully. First of all, we know Emperor Palpatine is back for episode 9, and that is for many reasons huge news. Last seen being thrown down the reactor shaft of the Death Star, which was then promptly blown up for good measure. For 36 years now, we have been safe in the assumption that the man was categorically fried chicken. Then came the teaser for the Rise of Skywalker and the sound of him laughing, which threw this whole assumption into question. Like, that's him, isn't it? But he's dead. But how can you be laughing if you're dead? Is it just Force stuff, or is he like there? Well, I mean, no, obviously he is in the story absolutely categorically definitely dead. And yes, I know he does sort of return as a sentinel droid in Battlefront 2, but that's the same as me drawing a cravat on a dog and going, "Oh look, Prince is back." So let's discuss the possibilities of that laugh. It could be a memory or a recording of some description, but that is incredibly boring. It could be a Force ghost of some kind, but we've never actually seen a Sith, a proper Sith anyway, use that technique. Or he could just be alive. I mean, after all, you never see his body. Being one of the most powerful Force users the galaxy has ever known, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that he somehow protected himself or he just survived it in some way. I mean, Christ, Darth Maul survived a very similar fate and he'd literally been chopped in half across the middle at the time. So whatever the answer is, he is back in some capacity. But cast your minds back to Revenge of the Sith, lol, yes, I know, and one of the character's most important scenes where he tells Anakin Skywalker the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise. Oh, you've forgotten how that goes, do you? Well, thankfully, we have the footage. Plagueis then went on to feature in some extended universe materials, but as far as Disney's new canon is concerned, that story is pretty much all there is to him. Hey, remember when we speculated after The Force Awakens that he was Snoke? Yeah, that was fun. The key thing to keep in mind with that scene, though, is that he had power over life and death itself, and he taught that power to his apprentice. And who was his apprentice? Why, it was Darth Sidious, of course. And what is Darth Sidious known as when he's at home? What's Palpatine's first name? Gary Palpatine. His apprentice was Gary Palpatine. For years, we all speculated that it was Darth Plagueis who had interfered with all the midi-chlorians to create some kind of virgin birth for Anakin Skywalker. But a recent actually canon Star Wars comic, Darth Vader 25, to be precise, reveals that it was Palpatine himself. He was the man who sort of impregnated Shmi Skywalker. The prophecy went that Anakin was going to be the one to bring balance to the Force, but in the end he turned on the Jedi, went to the dark side, and nearly wiped out the entire Order. Now, while that does mean that Palpatine's plan failed, it also means that it came really close to actually succeeding. And if you or I had a plan that came really close to succeeding, would you not just try again? I mean, a young child abandoned on a desert planet in the back end of the universe with no idea who its father is or really where it's come from, makes friends with all these droids because it's so technically minded, such a dab hand with technology, but gets treated like they're not even human, sold, bought all the time, things like that. And then, on top of all of that, they are quite gifted with the Force, even if they don't realize it, but as soon as they start practicing it, they are incredibly good. For all we hear that Rey's story is similar to Luke's, it's actually a lot more like Anakin's. Now, of course, yes, these parallels do not necessarily mean she was created by Emperor Palpatine, but nor are they accidental either. Kathleen Kennedy, lol, remember her, has said that the plan was always to bring him back for this film. Is it really that much of a stretch to believe he was going to try the exact same plan again, to create this other Force user seemingly out of nowhere who is incredibly gifted with the light side but constantly feels the pull to the dark? This is the same guy, let's not forget, who built 2 Death Stars. There's also a lot of little circumstantial evidence as well, like their musical scores are actually quite similar, and they're the only 2 people in the entire franchise to do that weird forward thrust with the lightsaber. Like, it's not a common style, but he did it in Revenge of the Sith and she's done it. You know which one I mean. Yeah, that one. If you want to get really silly with it as well, you can look at the fact that she gets angry over pretty much nothing and also has a British accent, but by that token, Palpatine created me as well, so maybe not. But look, I know what you're thinking, alright? If this is true, why is it Rey and not Kylo Ren? If Emperor Palpatine was still lurking around somewhere and was desperate to try the whole Anakin Skywalker thing again, why would he create someone from scratch and not simply turn to the heir apparent to Darth Vader himself, Ben Solo? Well, because ultimately, Darth Vader was a failure, wasn't he? His family ties in the end were too much for him to sacrifice, and thus he instead turned on the Emperor. So if you were going to have another go at that, you would want somebody free from that lineage, free of all that emotional baggage. Plus, and let's maybe whisper this one, Episode 9 is going to be the completion of the Skywalker saga, so redeemed or not, Kylo Ren probably has to die? And that's the point, isn't it? As I've already mentioned, the Rise of Skywalker is going to be the completion of this whole saga. It's going to pull in 8 movies worth of lore, 40 years worth of storytelling to make this nice, neat, wrapped up little package. Which is precisely why Palpatine is returning in all of this. He has ultimately been the villain of the entire saga. He was there in the first 3, he was there in the second 3, so he's got to be there somewhere in the final 3, even if it's only just right at the end. Plus, and this is the key thing, while Disney is saying they always had plans to bring him back for this one, it's also George Lucas's original idea to have him still in it by Episode 9. And as we know, Lucas has been consulted for this film. Thus, if there's one overarching thread we can rely on Episode 9 to pull on, it's this idea of bringing balance to the Force. And you do that by reconciling the light with the dark. Now, we've heard all through the last 2 films about this idea of the darkness rising and the light to meet it, but what if instead of that being 2 separate people, it's within Rey herself, the darkness in her and the light rising to meet it? And if that's the case, it begs one final question, and also coincidentally the most compelling reason behind this theory. After Episode 9, there will be no more Skywalker. So why is the film called The Rise of Skywalker? Luke's dead, Leia isn't able to feature anymore, and Kylo Ren is almost certainly going to die. Well, if the light and the dark rise in Rey to bring balance to the Force, she could adopt the mantle of being a Skywalker. It can become a title, it can become a legacy. With Rey having this balance of the Force inside her, she can become the thing that all Force users eventually aspire to be. Not Jedi, not Sith, a balance of the Force. And the word for that can be a Skywalker. And who created Skywalker in the first place? Emperor Palpatine. If she is the one to strike him down and forge that new path, it would be the most fitting end to the entire franchise, and also make me look great because this theory would have been absolutely correct. Thank you very much. But hey, that's just my theory though. Let me know what you made of it all in the comments below, and of course don't forget to like, share and subscribe. In the meantime though, thank you so much for watching. I've of course been Adam Cleary. It's going to be ages until episode 9, isn't it? Oh well, anyway, see you soon.